When it comes to Access databases and their objects, we've already visited two types of object. Tables, which is where your data is stored and kept. We have visited queries, select queries, for extracting information out of your table by filtering either the rows or the columns. We're now going to look at forms, and forms give you your user interface onto the data. So instead of everyone trying to use a table, which is massively wide and massively long, we use forms to interact with the data, because a form can filter the data and it can present one record at a time on the screen. And the easiest way to create a form is to use the form wizard. So we go to the Create ribbon, into the Form section and choose Form Wizard. One click starts the Form Wizard. Now, if you have more than one table or query, in this drop box here, you will have a choice of all of those tables or queries to base your form on. As our customer database only has one table, TBL customers, we have no choice to make. The second choice, in our case the first choice to make, is which fields would you like to see on the form? Because you don't necessarily have to see all the fields, just as in a query, you don't need to see all the fields. But obviously, if they're the only fields you can see, they're the only ones you can interact with, the only ones you can edit, the only ones you can change, the only ones that you can remove the data within that field for. So for our first form, let's see the first name, middle name, the last name, person's email address, their address type. Now you can see that I'm double clicking each one to jump across to the right hand side. We could use these arrows. The single arrow will move the selected field into the right hand side, so it becomes a field on the form. The double-headed arrow will move all of the fields across. So if you do want all the fields, you simply click the double-headed arrow and they're all then on the form. Likewise, the left-hand pointing double arrow will take them all off. So first name, last name. If we want more than one field, then we simply have to throw them across. So address. You can see that double-clicking is probably the quickest way, because I simply choose the field and double-click to throw it across. Total purchase, date first purchase, marital status, and total children will be fine for my first little form. And once I've chosen the right fields, they appear across this right-hand side. Next. Then I have to choose the layout for the form. Now the column is the default layout. This will present one record at a time on the screen. Or we have a tabular layout, very much mimics the tables, but obviously is restricted to the columns that we've chosen. We have datasheet view, which is effectively the table view of your data. And then we have justified, which tries to create lots of pretty boxes to make the form look quite good. We're going to stay with column for our first choice. Next. What title would you like for your form? Well, I don't want to call it TBL customers, but staying with a naming convention of sorts, I'm going to prefix it with FRM so that I know when I see it out of context that it's a form based on my customers. So FRM form. The last step of the wizard here is then to either open the form so that I can view the data and start manipulating it, or modify the form's design. Well, let's go with open the form to view the data. The form is then created for me, and you can see that I have one record at a time, but I can only see the columns that I have chosen. So I can only see the person's first name, last name, address type, line 1, line 2, city, total purchase today, date first purchase, marital status, and total number of children. To then move through the records, I either use the navigation keys here, or you'll find that page down and page up also move you up and down the records. Page down therefore moving you one record at a time forwards through the data, and page up moving you one record at a time backwards through the data until you're back at record number 1. You would then need to save your form so that it's retained for future use as FRM customers. That form is then stored in your form section, and every time you open it, if I close it now, it will open as a form looking at the first record, ready for you to then manipulate the data as you see fit. So that's the form wizard to create your form. So we could do another create form wizard. We've only got one table, but we'll choose less fields this time. We'll take all the name fields, their email address and their phone. Next, let's go with a tabular layout this time so you can see how it differs. Next, and I'm not going to call it TBL customers because that's the table name. I'm going to call it FRM tab customers. Finish, and the form then opens. Now with the tabular form, you see more than one record at a time on the screen, and you can tab through the first row, through the fields within it, just as you can a table, and then tab into the second row. Now what you will notice with a form generated via the wizard, the field widths aren't quite right because I can't see all the email addresses there, nor all the phone numbers actually. And the background color alternates between white, grey, white, grey, white, grey, all the way to the bottom of the data. This is what's classed as a continuous form. The tabular form, it's in a table layout and it continues to show all the data until you get to the end of the data. Whereas the column form shows a single record at a time and is effectively called a single view form. So these are two different forms here, both created by the wizard, both showing different information from the table, but still looking at the table. So the data that you see is not stored in the form. The form is effectively a window to the table through which we can see whichever columns we've asked for. So I can close that form as well, and I now have two forms in my database, both of which look at the same data, customers' data, but in a different way. One is column, one is tabular.